Hello. As Sarah said, my name is Abbie Maiden and I work for the Northern Ireland Environment Agency in their Biodiversity and Conservation Science Unit, where I oversee the National Plant Monitoring Scheme. The National Plant Monitoring Scheme was launched in 2015, therefore this year, 2020, celebrates 5 years of the scheme, and what a year it has been. So what is the NPMS? The National Plant Monitoring Scheme is a UK-wide citizen science habitat-based plant monitoring scheme which provides an indication of change in plant abundance and diversity over time, thus ultimately informing us of the health of our semi-natural environment. Across the UK, monads, 1 kilometre squares, see them dotted all over the map here, have been created via stratified random sampling, which members of the public can allocate themselves to survey. The NPMS has several overall aims. Firstly, to provide reliable measures of change for individual species and species groups within semi-natural habitats, to contribute to a new indicator of UK habitat quality, to utilise positive and negative indicator species for each habitat, and most importantly, be simple, repeatable and achievable by volunteers. Once you have selected a monad, you will receive a map, like this one on the right here, with 25 pre-selected locations at the grid intersections. The highlighted areas, such as the one here at number 8, represent NPMS habitats, in this instance, conifer woodland. It is expected that volunteers survey 3 square plots and 2 linear plots twice a year, once in late spring, early summer, and a second in late summer. The exact timings of the survey will be highly dependent across your location across the UK and as well as your habitat type. Furthermore, volunteers can choose the level they survey at, either wildflower, indicator, or inventory, and you can think of these as beginner, intermediate, and expert. As at the inventory level, you have to record all vascular plants, whether they're in flower or not. The NPMS habitat types are also classified by broad category habitat or fine scale habitat, and this will also be dependent on the volunteer's experience. For example, a beginner could tell you it's a bog or a wet heath, but it would take more experience to be able to differentiate between blanket bog and raised bog. It also gives you different numbers of indicator species. So for arable field margins, the wildflower level, there's only 15 species you need to be au fait with, whereas at the indicator level, there is 30. And each indicator species abundance is going to be recorded via the domain scale, a scale of 1 to 10, equating for percentage cover. So 2020 is a milestone year for the scheme as we celebrate the first 5 years of data collection. This means we can now start analysing the data returned to start forming statistically sound trends. To document this milestone, the NPMS released Understanding the Health of Our Habitats, and this document can be found on our website in the Conservation and Research section. So 5 years of the scheme has involved 1,500 citizen scientists who have conducted 15,000 surveys across the UK, and this has provided 150,000 plant records, and in total recorded 60% of the entire native flora of Britain and Ireland. Furthermore, the NPMS has been successful for sparking interest in biological recording, as 30% of our volunteers are new to plant recording, which is great to see new people getting involved. 5 years of the NPMS data can start to reveal impacts of extreme weather events, such as the drought of 2018, as the NPMS data shows indications of increases of bare ground, the increase of the abundance of species that are better at tolerating these stresses, such as salad, burnet, and wild thyme. It also highlights the impacts of warming climate, as buoy orchid, Ophrys apifera, have been recorded at the northern edge of its British range. Additionally, the NPMS data gathered so far investigates the impacts of non-native species, and as the NPMS is the only citizen science project that allows us to see how the most invasive species, such as Himalayan balsam, are interacting with our native biodiversity. For example, sycamore, Acer pseudoplantanus, is the most frequently recorded non-native species in the NPMS, particularly in dry deciduous woodland and hedgerows. Across the UK, over the last 5 years, there's been quite a similar number of people surveying at each level, with the majority of people surveying at the indicator level of 338 people. Additionally, there has been an average of 422 monads with data returned over the last 5 years, with the highest returns being in 2017 with 469. However, it's important to note in 2019, it is likely not all that data was in when this graph was made, because during lockdown, we've really been pushing for people to put in their historic data, even if it's back from 2015. This slide highlights the types of habitats surveyed across the UK. The most surveyed habitat is broadleaf woodland with 1,504, closely followed by lowland grassland with 1,384. Now this could be because they're both quite widespread habitats across the UK, compared to native pinewood and juniper scrub with 52 and rocky outcrops, cliffs and scree with 68. Now, for example, this could be because juniper scrub is very limited to a few areas in Northern Ireland and Scotland. You wouldn't find it at all in the southwest of England. And also it could be because of the health and safety implications of surveying areas such as rocky outcrops and cliffs. Here are the results for Northern Ireland specifically. At the start of the year, 108 people were on the mailing list with 3 tranches of squares released. And as of January 2020, 60% of the 234 monads had been allocated. However, in the Christmas newsletter, I'll be analysing how 2020 has affected this, especially during lockdown, but you might be surprised by the results, so watch this space. In Northern Ireland, the number of monads with data returned is understandably significantly lower than the rest of the UK. However, it's still following that same trend, with the peak of returns being in 2017. So this really highlights the scheme as a whole needs to focus not only on volunteer gain, but volunteer retention. And that's one thing we've been doing in 2020, really focusing on volunteer experience with our tweet meet back in March, which was a great event, and also our online training, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. So why is the NPMS data important? Here I'll go into some, but not all of the reasons. 1, it provides national trends in its own right, but also helps with the JNCC's aim to provide reliable measures of change for individual species and species groups within semi-natural habitats. Also, as the scheme produces UK and country biodiversity indicators, which can track progress against natural strategies, such as the agri-environmental schemes and also conservation plans. It allows relationships with potential drivers to be investigated, such as climate change, habitat management, the impacts of pollution and invasive species, but also whether protected areas are working or not. It will aid statutory reporting requirements, such as the EU Habitats Directive and any future alternatives. And it also can be linked to other species. For example, you could survey the same monad for pollinators and then get a direct relationship between the data. So the aims for 2020. This is obviously dependent on COVID-19 restrictions, but hopefully everything will be a bit more normal next year. Really like to target key areas with gaps. So I'd like to encourage monad allocation in these 3 border areas. So if you're listening to this and you think you'd like to get involved, please do. And also, you don't have to live in Northern Ireland to participate. You can live anywhere throughout Ireland, anywhere in the United Kingdom, as long as you're willing to travel to your monad twice a year to survey your plots. We'd also like to develop the mentor scheme. The NPMS mentor role is a voluntary role, and currently in Northern Ireland there is only one mentor, Lorna Somerville, and I would like to thank her, but I would also like to really develop the mentor network across Northern Ireland over the next few years. The mentor role is voluntary and is highly flexible in terms of time commitment and skills helped with. For example, you can help volunteers in the field with plot selection and/or species ID. You could commit to doing this once a month or only a few times a year. Alternatively, you could help people with species ID via email exchange of photos. It's entirely up to yourself. And as a mentor, you'd also be supported by other mentors, myself, and the volunteer coordinator, Dr. Rachel Murphy from Plant Life, and can also claim travel expenses if they've been pre-arranged. Being a mentor, especially as a BSBI member, will help build relationships with new people plant recording and can help increase confidence in that individual's records because you know them, you've been working with them. And furthermore, it will increase the public's awareness of the BSBI and is a great opportunity to pass knowledge on to people who are already really invested in botanical skills. Furthermore, in 2020, we'd like to do more training events. We'd like to do a mixture of field training and online training as well. But again, that will depend on COVID-19 restrictions. However, this year's restrictions, there was a silver lining. It gave us an opportunity to develop our online training. We decided to deliver a program of online training running from the 12th of May to the 8th of September. The training included 14 Zoom sessions with an average of 20 attendees at each on the topics, a range of topics from the NPMS methodology to specific habitat sessions, such as the introduction to broadleaf woodlands. The training sessions successfully engaged 260 participant places with 103 unique participants, which was great to see. One person even kindly said it was the highlight of her lockdown and looked forward to the Tuesday morning sessions, which, yeah, we couldn't have asked for more feedback than that. It was great to hear. The online training also involved annotated presentations being available on the NPMS website for volunteers who couldn't attend the Zoom sessions, along with downloadable supporting materials, which included habitat and species identification videos for each NPMS habitat. They include some great ID videos, especially if the plant was invasive or if it was edible, because the videos really go into detail in specific ID features of the plant. We would like to develop more of them for species that didn't have as good as videos as we would like next year. These resources were downloaded 6,500 times by 3,500 unique people, which is great to see people are using them. And remember, you don't have to be an NPMS volunteer to access these resources, just to go onto the Zoom sessions themselves. But these resources, they're available to everybody, so please do check them out and have a look and use them at your own leisure. So if you've been thinking of getting involved, please do. You can check out the website's Get Involved page, and it will talk you through how to sign up and how to get registered. And if you have any questions, feel free to email support@npms.org.uk. That's monitored by our volunteer coordinator, Dr. Rachel Murphy. Or equally, you could email me on abigailmaiden@dara.ni.gov.uk. Or you could put any of your questions in the chat box now, and I'll try my best to answer them right now. So thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the talks and the rest of your day. Thank you.